my thoughts on Gamera Rebirth. I feel like not that many people are talking about this show. I think it's because this show came out in September, right when we're talking about Godzilla minus one. We're talking about Monarch Legacy of Monsters. So there hasn't really been an opportunity to talk about the show, but I think it's a pity. I think the show unfortunately went under the radar, and it's just so good to see Gamera back. For me, it's a bit of a pity, but I do think it was pretty good. I think that I liked it quite a bit more than the Skull Island anime, which I barely didn't even talk about that. What can I say about Gamera Rebirth without any spoilers? I think it's Stranger Things meets the Monsterverse with a little bit of like the tone and style of Pacific Rim. That's how I describe it because it's very much like Stranger Things because there's the 80s settings, there's the kids, has a lot of action, has like the Monsterverse feeling because there's all these creatures all over the world coming to life, I guess, or waking up, and Gamera has to kind of deal with them. But I like the format of it because it's very much like every episode is Gamera versus a creature, a kaiju. I almost want to say Titan. And it reminds me of like the old Hanna-Barbera Godzilla or the 90s animated Godzilla, where it's just like Godzilla fights a random monster in this episode. It's very much formulaic, but I kind of like it honestly that way. So there's also obviously like there's the kids involved. There's more of a story to it than that. I'm not just saying it's monster shows up, Gamera fights it, and that's it. There's much more to it than that. I mean, look, compared to Singular Point was like much more esoteric. There's like this Godzilla's like an entity that's going to destroy the world, and he's like, they talk about these like, I don't even know how to describe it, like space time and all these things and physical reality, and he's like a god that's going to destroy reality kind of a thing. So maybe Singular Point was better written, but I feel like I enjoyed Gamera Rebirth a lot more. And if you just want like action, entertainment, fun, this show is great. It's not very long either. What was it? 6 episodes, but they're not that short actually. They're like 40-minute episodes each. So it's not each episode's pretty long actually. So altogether it's quite long. Well, I guess the thing with Singular Point is Singular Point was like a lot of episodes, but each episode was super short. It was like 20 minutes. So I guess if you had combined Singular Point, you could have then also probably, made the episodes longer. You would have like, I guess maybe 6 episodes. I think the action is really good. I know some people have gripes with the animation. I think the animation isn't the best when it's like the humans. That's true. I think on the monsters, the animation is pretty good. I think that the Gamera looks great. And I'll talk about his design in a second, and the monster's design in a moment. But in terms of like the animation during the fight sequences, it's pretty good. And I think the fights are really like intense and aggressive and much better than what you'd be able to pull off if you try to do traditional 2D animation. I know there's a whole discussion about anime, like 3D anime versus 2D animation. Some people really love 2D animation. I understand that style is like iconic, and I respect that. I will just say, with 3D animation, you can make the fight sequences more seamless, faster, more intense, and it's probably easier for the animators as well. Right? They can spend more time crafting these fight sequences instead of having to do them frame by frame, hand drawn. But of course, it does mean the humans look a little weird. It does look like a video game cutscene, right? A little bit. That's what it looks like, especially when the humans are talking. I understand that, but overall, I really didn't mind it, and it didn't distract from me. Granted, I really like the Ultraman anime, which also some people say that like has a bit of wonky animation, but I really like it. At first, it was interesting because I don't know if depending on some of the angles they used in the trailers, but looking at Gamera now, I and having watched the show, I really like the Gamera design in this show. I think they've done a great job of blending together Gamera from the 90s, but also making it more modern. I think this design, honestly, if you took it, made it look less hand-drawn, I guess, and you gave it more like realistic, photorealistic textures, but kept the design roughly the same, you could put this in a live action film, no problem. Just look at, I think there's like some stuff they do to make him look kind of animated. But if you made this, if you just texturized him a little differently, you could put this easily in a live action movie. It's great. Some of the other kaiju, that's a little bit more controversial, I guess. I like their designs, but I wasn't sure. They went a little bit like wacky, should I say, or extreme with some of the designs, like Guido in here. Well, actually, his design isn't over the top, but his abilities are. Like, he like flips through the air and stuff. But he's really dangerous. Like, Vidas is actually pretty cool looking. Gyaos kind of looks the same, but just more crazy. I get if that makes any sense. If you look at them, I think Vidas was probably one of the best redesigns. Gyaos kind of looks the same, just crazier. Jiger, I don't know how you say it. Kind of looks very much like inspired by the original, but just more over the top. Zigra is the one I think was the most, what's the word? The one, because I think Zigra is a cool kaiju. And I was excited to see the kaiju get remade in the modern times. But I'm not a huge fan of the redesign. Because, like, well, here it doesn't look too bad. When you look at the whole thing, like, the body is just so, the head is so small, but the fins are huge. The figure doesn't give it a lot of, doesn't sell the design very well. In the show, it's actually not so bad, but the figure they made for it looks a little silly. So I think Gamera is the best looking of the kaiju, for sure, in terms of design. But I will say, the other kaiju do look pretty cool, and I like their performances in the anime, but the designs, I wish they could have been a little bit better. Actually, Gidon does look also pretty cool compared to the original, compared to how dorky the original was. I think Gidon and Bidas are the best redesigns in the show. Gyaos kind of looks the same, just crazier. Zigra was, wasn't in love with the redesign. And who else? And Onjigerd looks kind of the same, but just more added to it, more over the top. Yeah, and I don't want to say too much without spoilers, but I would definitely love to see another season. I'm not sure what they could really do, because the problem with Gamera, the issue is that Gamera doesn't have a lot of villains to fight, really. There's Barugon, Iris, Legion, and that one creature, Jiras, is that what it's called, from Gamera Little Brave? That's it, though, like 4 more. So Gamera is not like Godzilla that has a huge rogues gallery, right? So they either have to invent new kaiju, which is not a bad thing, or, I don't know, use the rest of those, then use new kaiju. But I liked it quite a bit, and I want to see Gamera back in live action. I think the show proves that Gamera is just still as entertaining as he was in the 90s. I think a Gamera live action film would be great. Maybe Gamera in the Monsterverse. I think Gamera still works really well. And I know that, like I said, it's been a while. The last film came out in 2006, and that was kind of cheesy. That wasn't great. But the 90s series, this show really proves, I think Gamera can still be really entertaining to watch. It's a really great kaiju. And is like slightly different from Godzilla and Kong, that it doesn't feel like another big monster, but Gamera is his own thing. And he has traits and qualities that make him unique compared to Godzilla. So I'd really love to see Gamera come back in live action. And a crossover with Godzilla, I think, is kind of an absolute at this point. I mean, I believe Kadokawa wanted to do it, and then Toho, I don't know how true this is. Kadokawa wanted to do a Godzilla versus Gamera, but Toho didn't want to. They weren't interested. And as it reported, Gamera Rebirth is coming to Battle Line. So Godzilla and Gamera will actually fight in a video game on mobile, but still, it's the first time ever, I think, they've ever done anything together, even promotional. I think, personally, I'd love to see Gamera more in the Monsterverse than, like, any of the Toho productions, because where would Gamera fit in Godzilla -1? I feel like -1 is a bit more serious. I'm not sure that Gamera would fit. I feel like Gamera would work a lot better in the Monsterverse. But hey, I mean, if -1 did really well, Toho wants to create their own universe, and they say, hey, let's bring Gamera in. Okay, Godzilla, maybe a Godzilla versus Gamera film set in the 1950s or 60s with the -1 design and a new Gamera design. I would watch that. I mean, I don't care. I will watch Godzilla versus Gamera no matter what. Okay, that is like the one film we've never had. Godzilla versus Kong, we had that before in the 1960s. Yes, it was a long time ago, but we had it. We've never had Godzilla and Gamera in the same film ever. Ever. This never happened. So that would be insane to get Godzilla and Gamera in the same film and fighting each other. Like everybody wants it. I'm not really sure why Toho didn't want to do it, but maybe that's something they will want to pursue now. I think so. I mean, with how popular Godzilla is right now, I think it'd be silly not to try. And the fact that Gamera just came out, I think it'd be silly for them not to do Godzilla versus Gamera. So we'll see. I don't know how the show did. I don't know how Gamera Rebirth, how well it did on Netflix. The creators did say, like, if it does really well, sure, we'll do more stuff. We'll do sequels. We'll do live action stuff, maybe. Maybe a second season, maybe with Godzilla in it. I would prefer something live action, but if it's a taste of Godzilla versus Gamera, then sure, I would totally watch that. That could be something interesting. Bring Godzilla into the Gamera Rebirth series. I think that could be interesting. Overall, I think it's a good show. I think it's entertaining. It's not super long, 6 episodes, about 40 minutes each, but I think it's worth your time if you like this kind of show. If you liked the 90s Gamera series, you like the 60s Gamera films, you should check out this show. If you're a Gamera fan, you should check this show out. It's pretty good. I think if you're looking for something like Singular Point, you might not like it that much. It's more action driven. If you liked the Godzilla anime trilogy, you'll probably love this. I will say, if you hated the Godzilla anime trilogy, you will like this. This is much better than the Godzilla anime trilogy. And if you didn't like Singular Point, you'll also like this. I think this is very entertaining and it's quite fun. Like I said, I feel like no one's really talking about it. This kind of slipped under the radar. Maybe because it was animated, not live action, but it's really good. And I would give it a watch if you haven't seen it yet. I just want to see more stuff with Gamera in the future. Anyway, that's kind of my spiel on Gamera Rebirth. Watch it. Also, it's better. It's more interesting than you think too. Like I said, I'm trying to say as much as possible without giving spoilers. But the show is actually quite interesting, and there's some things you wouldn't expect. So that's all I can really say.